Hello and welcome back. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome back someone who truly understands the intersection of technology, business, and human transformation. Chris Hallenbeck, Senior Vice President and General Manager of AI and Platform at Boomi. So I'm sure you remember Chris. We had a discussion a few months ago, and in our last conversation, we explored how Boomi is pioneering agentic transformation, helping organizations move from automation to autonomy. Today, we'll go even deeper. We'll discuss about what does true agent-driven transformation look like in practice. We'll discuss about how are companies measuring real business impact from agentic, and how can leaders balance experimentation with governance in this new age of AI agents. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hey, Pascal, I'm fantastic. And thank you very much for having me back. Looking forward to another conversation.
Lovely.
Super.
Chris, can you, for the viewers, and especially those who don't know you, could you briefly introduce yourself, share what Boomi is, and describe your role in the company?
Yeah. So Boomi, thank you. I think you gave my title, so Boomi, we talk about it. It's mostly known as the company in the top right-hand corner of many of the magic quadrants from the leading analyst in integration platform as a service, right? But then of late has been growing tremendously. Just got recognized in the top of one of the magic quadrants, for instance, in API management and how we do that with common control planes and then also moving into data management as well. And the reason was because in people are like, why are you moving into these areas and also innovating so quickly in them? And the reason was the CEO, who I worked really close with for years, Steve Lucas, was seeing the intersection of where things were heading with agentic and realizing that, as we think about what agents need, right? We talk about them that they need to perceive, they need to reason, they need to act. That means they need context, right? They need data,
Yes.
and data doesn't just come, it comes from APIs, it comes from web services, it comes from these places. So we need to have all of that. Even integrations become MCP servers. We can talk about that later. But how do I get all that information together to create the context to make an agent that makes a really informed decision and then knows how to act properly? So seeing that, so Boomi has evolved from iPaaS into this company that can connect to anything and connect it to everything. And how do we do that? And then allow you to activate AI. We don't talk about being an AI company. We're a company that enables you to use AI to activate business processes and unlock ROI. So the reason I had worked with Steve for years, but the reason he asked me to come in was I had made a career. I did two quite successful startups earlier in AI. We used to call it operations research, but how to bring in large scale models into business applications to increase business process. Then moved on, was managing director at Google Cloud and AI and analytics, senior vice president of platform at SAP, where I was responsible for their data science teams and the algorithmic work happening within HANA. And then eventually spent the last 3 years before going to Boomi at McKinsey in Europe, primarily working with companies to really look at their landscapes and how they manage their data to meet this moment of agentic
Mm.
and how to leverage not just agents, but any kind of math, what do we want to
Yes,
call it, machine learning, et cetera, to accelerate business. So,
makes sense.
um, but yeah, amazing to be at Boomi. Absolutely love being here.
Yeah, very, very, very exciting. Can you tell me what Boomi is in short, and what makes you different on the market? What makes you very specific?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, Boomi, like I said, integration platform as a service, cloud-based, although we have the ability to run public cloud, our managed cloud into your own or on premise or all simultaneously based on the type of workflow you have. So part of that, we can run one highest security system out there. Just got our ISO 42001. I think we're the second company to have the AI specific ISO certification. But as a platform where I can connect up, we have connections to almost every dominant application made, simple to make new ones, huge set of partners design them as well. as well as to any web service data source, et cetera. And we can pull that data and orchestrate it down to do not just integration, but full automation. And as I mentioned, it's now about how do we activate AI where it makes sense? When do I want to go beyond just deterministic code and move towards probabilistic within those workflows? And now Boomi enables that. And what we do that within, though, is you're not, like I said, it's not that we're the AI activation company as opposed to trying to compete with Anthropic. As a matter of fact, we work very closely with Anthropic and OpenAI. Is how do we do that with the enterprise security and governance that you need for these business processes built in? All the security, the governance, the observability, the audit trails to be EU AI compliant, all in a common platform. So you can move and create business impact really quickly. And that's what we're focused on. So that is who Boomi is and what the platform does.
I love it. Very simple, very clear. Could you elaborate on what agentic transformation really means? We discussed about this last time, and at
Yeah.
Boomi, you have a specific way to manage that and to even define it.
Yeah. I think it's good to say, like, what are we talking about when we do that? Where were we, right? We were in the age of people would say digital transformation, right? And we'd started off with connectivity. Boomi was at the center of that, connecting applications, not just as middleware, but to say, look, I have a business process that runs across two, three systems. How can I make a continuous, smooth business process across that and make that work correctly? But then we write everybody in the companies then shifted and realized that their processes were inside out. And as the focus on the customer came in and multi-channel, we realized we needed to look at how our companies worked. And the good people doing digital transformation looked at it and said, how can I actually increase the impact of my customer and make things run smoothly for them? So they rethought their processes. And again, Boomi at the center of that, making that possible. And now we're saying, wow, with the age of agentic, how can we actually rethink how the processes themselves run? How can we create better impact for the customer on the fly? How can we actually take certain things, make them run more efficiently? How can I reduce risk automatically where I don't have people to do it or there's not time to do it? This is about the age of how we add. Yes, for efficiency, everyone focuses on the efficiency side, but I can increase impact, increase revenue, make my bottom quartile employees act like the top quartile. How do I reduce risk? And agents do all this. Fundamentally, though, you're starting to, it's not just about taking your existing processes and dropping agents. You can do that and it's good. But agentic transformation is when we start to rethink about how they work and how they run. And what we do is we actually meet with companies and we sit down and say, let's not go in with a prescribed set of outside in workflows. Let's sit down, do an agentic impact workshop with you. Let's educate you. Most people don't know what agentic workflows are. Let's get a common understanding. Let's build those out. And then once we do that, we'll do some hands-on work to understand. We'll build agentic workflows, build agents and tie them in. What happens at that moment is this bit of magic because we actually include business people. And then all of a sudden they go, oh my God, that's what this whole AI thing is today? Because, right, there's so much AI washing. Once they get that moment and they have that, they're like, I have so many ideas where this could have impact. Interestingly, IT didn't know them because the business stopped asking IT because they got told no for decades. Now, like, that's what this does? Had a customer that already said their hand was cramping. They were writing down use cases so fast. A big CPG firm. And then they have inside out ideas about impact. And then we can actually say, great, look at those level of effort, level of value, and that, and how they can then implement those. And a lot of those are small because if I have a good AI platform, I don't need a huge project to justify this big team. I can do small projects, build trust in how agents work, unlock value all over in small places and reduce friction. What's been interesting beyond that was I've now got asked to go back to the same companies. And they're like, could you come back now that we, and I'll work with a business and they're saying the CEO wants to have a workshop. I've done multiple ones for CEOs and the division heads and central finance to teach them on repeat visits because they like now that we do this, we all need to have a common understanding and language for doing this and unlocking value. And so, yeah, just
Exciting.
super
Exciting.
fun.
Yeah, exciting to see how it started in the functions and now moving up to the CEO. So becoming more
Well,
strategic and more visible.
100%. And you see it, McKinsey came out with their CEO paper back in June and they did a follow-up, and the same thing with the MIT study that we all talk about back in July. But all of them talked about the fact that the value, yeah, people were starting in marketing and sales, as did Boomi with our own. But we quickly find out that the true ROI and value that is measurable is happening within vertical use cases, within business processes, order to cash, you know, uh,
Mm.
lockbox reconciliation, manual journal reconciliation. I'm doing price costing, supply chain, all these different processes that happen is where the huge ROI exists. And
Do you
that's where
see
you
as
see
well
things moving.
do you see as well a trend to have those agents work more transversally across functions, connecting, and you talked about purchase to pay, order
Beginning
to
as well,
cash.
yeah, because the data and stuff, I think you're seeing that a lot. To take
It's
manufacturing
breaking
as
the
a,
silos.
yeah, no, completely. It was, but even beyond business processes, especially with the data that needs to move, oftentimes the data that is required in downstream processes to run efficiently and leverage this is created upstream, but it's broken by the time it gets down there. We call it dirty data, but it's not that it's wrong, it's that it's missing values. It wasn't encoded correctly. And if we use agents, we can actually fix that along the way so that it can have impact at every level of different process where that data flows from the beginning of maybe design through ordering, manufacturing, all the way down to servicing. So servicing could, where some of the biggest impact could be had is possible, right? You can do
Yes.
that if you tie that together, those transversal processes as you refer to them. Yeah.
Yes. Well, let's talk about those business outcomes. I mean, what are some examples of clear, measurable business outcome that you see in those agent-driven workflows?
Yeah, I give two. I'll give two. One would be great, and they do happen in cost. So I remember we're doing one of these agentic impact workshops. Literally, a chief accounting officer just hip checks, moves everyone out, and goes, "I don't care what your use cases are. Mine is first."
Uh,
She goes in and says, I have this horrible problem. It's called lockbox reconciliation. They get payments to a bank, and basically it's similar to the problem that we have with goods receipt invoice reconciliation, but for a company that does services as opposed to goods. And she's like, look, we've outsourced this. It's an HR nightmare. We can't get people. We have tons of money that is tied up and untraceable. I can't close the books. It's problematic. We built an agent in just a couple of days that was able to solve that, and it saved 27,000 hours worth of time, of a problem. And then plus all the downstream value of this money that was not being
Wow.
traceable and causing time on the books. And yeah, that was a straight efficiency issue. It was an outsourced. They referred to it as cyber shoring as opposed to offshoring or onshoring. Cyber shoring. Other in case you'd go where, somebody is doing large projects. You're selling turbines or elevators and these systems with right now with price volatility and the tariffs going on, you want to do a contract. It's under a 5-year contract. So what you were having was thousands of parts need to be recosted today, understanding the potential 5-year impact. They can't do it. So you're actually having contracts signed today that are already underwater in margin because they don't have the people and the headcounts and the ability to actually check all the thousands and thousands of products that are in that bill of material. But I can with an agent. So the agent can actually validate, do all the variability, bring that into the spreadsheets and the price costing system that then understands the impact and then says, yeah, you're okay. The margins is good here, and you can go ahead and move ahead with the contract in the business. So unlocking incredible value of something that was just physically not possible to be done before.
I love
So
this.
two
I love
different
this.
issues. One's unlock value, one was efficiency.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very, very tangible and very, very, very insightful. And so we are talking about automating existing processes. But do
Yeah.
you see as well companies reimagining those business processes with AI agents?
I think they are, right? But it's early days. I think people are starting off back to the digital transformation. They started off connecting their internal, and then they realized that was not the thinking about it inside out wasn't the right way. Once they got to the next level, they had enough openness to realize they should think about their processes from the customer. And I think we're in a similar type situation today. People are now looking at how can I take steps within existing workflows and add AI to improve people's efficiency, increase their impact, reduce the risk, or reduce the cost through full automation. And now they're starting to say, well, actually, if those steps were because I was held back before by technology or by processes, would I really redesign it that way? And the answer is no. And then they rethink it. And that's
Love
when
it.
you have the real unlock. That is the real reimagining. It's just beginning though, and we're working with clients through some of that. But that is where the huge big ROI is going to come from as we rethink those things.
That's really what I see as well as a critical success factor. And so very often business will start with copying and pasting in fact the existing process from manually handled currently to automated with an agent. But the real success really comes when you rethink this process with the outcome in mind. What do we need to achieve? What do we need to do? What is the best way to get there? And those steps that used to be done just because we've always done that way
Exactly.
should be removed. And we should rethink the entire processes with a new set of capabilities from the agent and from the people as well that need to review at some time that need and so that review is so critical to make it work.
And so much of this, because right, workflows were about me, I do something. Let's take something, it's kind of a boring example, but I think for the people in the that are listening may not understand. Just let's take expense report approval. Totally boring. You can do them, you can automate them. Our CEO loves that because he hates expense rewards. But and he's so excited that we do these automated now. But it's a little silly in a workflow. I'm the manager. I somehow don't know something and don't like it. So I'm going to send it back to you. And then you do work and then you send it back to me as a leader. That's a little crazy. If you think about it, if the agent went in and said, wow, that was kind of high and I spent a lot of money, but was on a bottle of wine. And I looked into it and I saw the expense report mention a company name, look in my calendar, take a look at it. And it turns out that my employee was taking out, senior executives of a company and then came back and maybe approved it or at least told me and said, oh, by the way, yeah, they spent 130 euros on a bottle of wine, but they were out with the CEO of a company that's in the forecast this quarter. Of course, of course I'm going to pay it. I'm not going to question the bottle of wine. And it's that kind of silliness. Like, why is it this always back and forth inbox queues? I'm sending it to them to look at their email and write something down. Why doesn't the agent just look at what are the logical outcomes of that and then move forward? And half the time, none of us would even look at it, to be honest. Like rethinking things that way. And it's not only internally, we will begin to see with exposed MCP servers on both sides that like, if I'm taking goods receipt invoice reconciliation, you wouldn't do it the way you did it. You'd actually have agents checking ahead of times on prices, do the prices align, and then you won't have the price issue and then emails. Why does the purchase order and the invoice not match? All that would be delegated and be managed ahead of time if I had agents doing this and communicating constantly. MCP will enable that to have these cross supplier consumer working, and that's where the rethinking can be so impactful.
Yes, I love this. I love this. You talked in your introduction that you were more and more working on the level of governance, responsible, secure AI. And when we talk about transformation at scale, these elements become so important. Can you yeah tell us how you strike the right balance between experimenting with agentic workflows and maintaining the level of governance that is needed at the company level?
Well, and here I've been trying to speak more generally about what's possible with platforms and do this. So now I'll be a little Boomi specific. Um, if you have a platform, well, let's go back. This AI paradox that McKinsey talks about, where the problem is that whenever you have a pilot, you can't really go to production because it doesn't have the enterprise class features, and there's these problems. So you have to kind of even the good ones. If you look at it, if you build on a platform from the get-go, first of all, it's no low code. So I can fly, and of course, you can get down into more technical things if you have to. But for the most part, I can have the product teams doing the work and innovating. So the people who understand the problem are doing it. and they can build stuff within minutes, and AI helps them. I can just cut and paste standard procedures in it, auto gens out all the reasoning steps and the sub steps. You edit them, you link the tools, and you're done. Very simple. But if I've done that, if I'm in a platform that automatically has guardrails built into it, I can add on to them, but basic things are done for me. The system has prompt injection protection built into it. It's scrubbing the output during not only during the when I'm looking at the output tokens and making sure nothing is bad in there, but actually checking the response on the way back to make sure nothing protected comes back. And I've also told the agent what it's allowed to do. I use delegated tool auth is automatically built into all the requests. So the agent only has access to the same data that is allowed by the person, not a system password, but true delegated auth. None of this is done in any platform core. Boomi does all of this. So now the security is all there. Agents are locked down and inaccessible to anyone not authorized for a workflow. And then I have all of the governance. I can have observability, not just for Boomi agents, AWS, Microsoft, Salesforce, 300 different companies' capabilities of having a control plane that is looking at all of the agents with agent specific type of things that you have to worry about, like token output size. You'd think nothing of it. It's the number one indicator if an agent has been compromised with a hack and that
Mm.
somebody is trying to get data out of it. We have anomaly detection that runs over that. So no one's having to look at 300 agents. The anomaly detection finds the problems and takes that needle in the haystack and says, look at this needle. I think it's a problem. I can clear it, or I can halt the agent and then fix the problem. Then you get into the observability data, not only across that, I can dump that into Dynatrace, I can dump that into Splunk where it's there, and then I have the audit trail. So when my auditors show up asking about why did the agent do these things for these like regulated workflows and things like finance, I'm like, look, here was the output, here's the input to all the different
Mm.
calls, here's how the reasoning of the agent went, and here's what happened. And they're like, oh, okay, good. But I don't worry about that. So even during when I'm playing, if I decide that's a great idea and I move it into production, all of that's done automatically. The security, the observability, the governance, and then scaling up, as we mentioned, which just comes from a platform. So
Very useful,
that's
very useful, and very. Solving an issue that a lot of C levels tell me that they have, yeah, they have problems with, and especially in the adoption of those technologies, being able to sleep quietly, having that the controls, the guardrails, the observability, everything is in, is so critical.
I had talked to Agent Sprawl was something we talked about at Boomi because we had Control Tower. And quite honestly, it didn't resonate with people. And I was going to pull it. I was going to call marketing and pull it, and just say, I think we're wrong. Like, I think maybe we're off. And then something started to change a little bit. And then I called four of the major analyst companies that look at Agentic, big names, you know them all, and some specialist ones that are exceptionally good. And I talked to them about Agent Sprawl and I said what I was thinking. And I said, is something changing? And they said, yes, it's growing tremendously. Now people are finding out that they have 8 agent builders and they had no idea. And people are moving things into production. They're doing stuff. They have no idea what the security policies are. There's no governance over these. And so it wasn't a problem and it's increasing rapidly. And so, yes, having business impact is the number one still to a CIO, but they would say that number two is now how do I manage the sprawl of agentic sprawl, which is what we designed Control Tower for. I thought it wasn't an issue, and then it turns out we were just early in the market. But better, good to be there.
Yeah, definitely. So important. And we see, I see, and I think most of the people see organizations increasingly challenged by fragmented integration, data silos. We talked about it, inconsistent governance across multi-vendor. I mean,
Yeah.
I, I mean, we have also the emergence of new AI models, new tools. I mean, all this is a bit chaotic, to be frank. How does Boomi ensure customers can easily integrate best of breed technologies without sacrificing the governance or the interoperability?
Yeah, when we started this journey, we came up internally, our internal philosophy and tagline was no walled gardens. because we knew, who knows? Today it's Anthropic, then it goes to OpenAI, and then Gemini comes out, and then we're back. And meanwhile, while the Titans are growing better with these foundational models, and huge token counts, which is, that's fine. All of a sudden, there's this room for these line of business and industry specific models that are brilliant, that run so fast and do things really, really well. And we want our customers to be able to take advantage of all of them. As I said, not an AI company, an AI activation company. And so, of course, our agents are built on some of the foundational models to do things, and then we will help use smaller models to optimize that performance. And we do that within our own agent builder. Then I mentioned Control Tower, where we out of the box does several of the biggest, but we support up to 300 vendors with observability all the way down to governance, and I can have that view. But then we get into what we're finishing up in the roadmap, which is the ability to actually take agents from third parties and drop them into Boomi workflows.
That is
So,
amazing.
and to the audience, some people get a little confused here because most people think about agents or, like, I speak to something like a chat bot or something in my email. And then we have these things like summarizers that all our meetings now get summarized. When you're working in a workflow, very few, not, it actually isn't conversational typically. The input is XML or JSON, mostly JSON, data, serialized data, and the output is that. Has to be guaranteed, by the way, which agents can't do. So you have to have that ability to do that, which Boomi does. And I drop that and then huge security encryption, everything else, and authentication, and I plug that into a workflow pipeline, into an automation. We do that with Boomi agents today called Agent Step. It's a pretty incredible piece of kit. We're enabling you to actually take your own agents that you've developed and use that same technology. So now, if Boomi doesn't support the agent you want, like some brilliant line of business agent, you're like, I really need that for this process. Absolutely. So that's coming out in the next quarter or two. That will allow you to
Lovely.
use third-party agents directly within Boomi workflows. So really excited about that. Want our customers to be able to innovate, take advantage of the best technology, and then when a better agent comes out, they can move to that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So they take the best of all the worlds,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and
Innovate at the speed of AI.
yes, definitely. And so this means those agents can talk the one to the other, can, as you explained, share information the one with the other, but also you can orchestrate all of those
Yeah.
together. It
So,
means you can control all of them, see what they are doing, and have metrics at the end of the day that tell you what they've done as a cohesive team
exactly. And
of agents.
people get excited about things like agent swarms and all these things. And then you get into the academic and you look at the research and it's like, okay, that's not really working. There's a couple of use cases where it's possible, but realistically, you get really non-deterministic outcomes and lots of token consumption.
Mhm.
However, if I actually am in a workflow system, I can have an agent with output that then goes to another agent or branches. So it can actually orchestrate multi-agent. This is different than agentic systems working together doing that. So I can actually link multiple agents in a workflow solving a common business problem,
Yes.
100%, even with shared information and context between them. So that is slightly different. And we already do that.
Mhm.
We're coming out with A to A support in next release because we know that's critical, even though the use cases and the things aren't there, but that is going to eventually work. The vendor's going to make it. So just as we support MCP natively as both consumption as a client and actually all our API management integrations as a server, we're adding an A to A for the moment of when that's possible as well. So people can begin to experiment there as well. But this multi-agent is important because agents can be taught to do small things with extremely high quality output.
Exactly.
And then I
Exactly.
can link them high quality mixed with deterministic logic.
Mhm. Yes.
So I'm getting
Yes.
the best of deterministic, probabilistic in a single workflow. And Boomi does
Yes.
that incredibly well. Yeah,
Yes. And on top of this, you can have agents reviewing the work of
exactly.
other agents. And that's, in terms of controls, an amazing thing.
100%. Exactly. You get it.
A few very tangible advice from your side. If I'm listening to us now, I'm a company who's thinking of going into agentic. What are the first step they need to go through? What are your recommendations? Where to
Yeah.
start?
Number one, even the, and I hate it's like I'm going to be brutal, but this is what we learned from the outside working with with companies. Even people in teams that you would think know what AI in their title may not understand agentic workflows. So coming to a common understanding in language where people truly understand it, and not just the technology. It doesn't. We don't need to get into the tiny things of input output tokens. Like I'm talking about truly understanding what an agent is, that is something that can reason, have data input into that. They can perceive their environment, they can reason against a goal and take action, and to understand that viscerally. And then what does that mean in terms of the solution space? When you do, and I really mean this, I know I said that, but the reason why I talked about doing that was we realized that's what's needed for innovation and impact. If you don't do it with Boomi, that's fine, but you need to do it.
Yes.
You need to come
That's
up with so that people can have a common conversation and a common language. The business needs to learn because they're the ones with use cases. Outside in use cases, eh, honestly, it's the inside out where people believe in them. And you have to be able to go after the small ones because you need to build trust. People are scared of these systems. Maybe, and we in technology are okay with this. They hear about these stories that within this past year that, LLMs don't know how many words, letters of R are in the word strawberry, or, just all this terrible stuff they can do when they're not properly controlled. And they're like, I'm going to trust my financial processes to a system that doesn't know that there's 3 R's in strawberry. Like, you're kidding me. And yet the answer is, so you need to build trust. And so start small, maybe have a great set of use cases that justifies the ROI, and then build a small one, build trust, and then the next A/B test, human in the loop. And then you turn the agency and say, okay, for the top 80% that are there, we'll auto match those. The other top 20, the other 20, human in the loop. You begin to build trust over time. And the other one, which is the impact, these horizontal use cases with co-pilots and other stuff, they're interesting. And I'm not talking about coding, I'm just talking about the more diversified ones. They don't have really measurable impact. I don't have to say this. MIT has said this, McKinsey says this. It is these verticalized use cases, working with finance, working with the HR on onboarding, working with supply chain. That's where the true ROI, measurable ROI is coming from. And so you need to dig into those areas and not just think about sales and marketing. That's my
excellent.
advice.
Excellent. And I think it also matters to have, as you said at the beginning, to have different functions bringing together the efforts around agentic, so that you make
Completely.
the pie
Exactly. It's the
bigger, and you make
plurality of voices.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you make the pie bigger, and to a CEO, to a board of director, this means something that makes sense in terms of
Yes.
investment and return on investment.
Yeah. 100%.
What would be your same answer for companies who are a bit more mature now, who started implementing a few agentic systems, agentic use cases across the business, but are still looking for to scale that?
One, there's two different aspects to that. I think one is organizational. So, like we were looking at operating model, right? So, people, processes, tools. We have some that are doing incredibly well. And a lot of them did a lot of stuff with custom code. They were at that top 2, 3% technically. They understood frameworks, they knew how to work out at that. A lot of the other use cases, you just want to go fast. I don't need custom models. I don't need to build something in LangChain. I just want to move
Mm.
quickly and allow innovation. And if I'm in a product operating model, I want to have that in the product team. So how can I do no low code? So begin to look at platform choices that you want to do and moving away. You're going to do custom sometimes, of course, because you're that kind of company culturally, but recognizing the need to scale. Because once you start to go and people see the value, it literally becomes this combinatoric problem, and you need to control that. So you need a platform with the governance, the security, and the ability to let not crazy technical people succeed in doing this. Because if you don't and you say, oh, you're in line, shadow IT will take over and they'll start doing stuff in an ungoverned, unsecured way. They need to unlock the value. So you need to give them a path. The other one, though, is to help them. And this is creating a proper group that is understanding the use cases, prioritizing them, working with teams, saying, okay, you guys get this platform, you're on your own. These ones are being prioritized, these ones are high risk. So looking at the governance, but working on those projects, having steps that everyone follows. So saying this is our governance approach to building out in our gates to make people successful and line it up, not to get in the way, to say, hey, like we've learned what's good and bad, and we don't want you to find out at the end that you're not ready from a security or this. So here's this guide for success. And then having those, you're on your own, we'll help kind of, we'll assist you and give you that. And these ones we're going to run ourselves because they're huge, high impact.
Mm,
Putting that structure in place is key.
yes.
And so, we're doing it inside Boomi. We're actually trying to figure out how do we help kind of package that up to give to our customers to give them a base. We're not there yet, but that's actually coming. But really it is how do we the people and the processes to go with that technology I spoke about first.
And when you get everyone, I mean, or each function in the company having their own agentic projects and being
Yeah.
able to manage them in a way, start them and build them, you also change the ownership, huh? And ownership in this kind of projects is 100% of change management. You get it,
Oh,
you get the
completely.
change management done,
But then
and
you
the
have to,
adoption
that
is
is
there.
why the governance becomes so important because if I don't have that at a backplane and everybody is doing and moving so quickly, you're going to be in trouble so
Yeah,
quickly if you
yeah,
don't have that
definitely,
worked out.
uh,
Yeah.
definitely. Last question for you, Chris. So, looking ahead, what milestones will signal that an organization has truly entered the era of agentic transformation? And how will Boomi's roadmap support customers on that journey?
Yeah. Number one is when your business people start talking about it within their roadmap and doing that. It's when they've converted. Right now, everyone's like, oh, what can we do with AI? And it's not the right thing. It's a tool in your toolbox to solve certain problems. You need to use it and you need to learn to use that tool like a craftsman. But everyone from the business to technical and other people, once they can talk about that in an open, common way and understand what it can do and not do and use it when appropriate, and usually it's in mixing with deterministic, probabilistic integrations, my old systems, my new way of working, we think these SaaS applications we're going to replace with conversational and we're going to move that business logic into the agentic mesh. And when you start having conversations like that and you understand you have proper policies and other stuff for governance and the tooling in place, you are now fully like you're going, right? And I think that requires though a company to come together and to make this part of their internal fabric and way of working, like part of their operating model. Back to the first conversation. For
Mhm.
us, what we've been doing was first to add that speed of the this whole aspect of what we call control tower to give you that whole governance and observability all the way up to for our European listeners to talk about having actual audit trails to be EU AI compliant, having why we got ISO 42001 to be ISO compliant so that our customers feel confident in the platform, FedRAMP for AI, et cetera. All of those things built in. So that's part of the roadmap and continuing on. So CISOs and others are like, I understand this and this is secure. Everything's encrypted. No, nobody can read it. Never comes to rest unless it's encrypted to death with my keys. So that part of again, and then all the things with, I think we're seeing some like for some of the work that we're doing, um, working on delegated tools and what we're doing, like we're working with Okta now. So when you're actually kicking off an agentic workflow, your phone comes up and says, hey, Chris Hallenbeck in San Francisco, did you want the tool delegate? Are the tools are accessing the system? Is that really you? And you're like, yes. So before I'm giving an LLM access to my finance and my HR and other systems, it's checking who I am and that there's not a hack so we can appropriately do those types of things. That's one of the ones we're working on at that moment. And we were at the Okta conference and speaking about that. So putting that in place. So continue with the governance, this multi-agent I spoke about, we call BYOM, bring your own model so you can innovate using Boomi. And then the last thing, we're really doing some incredible work now with allowing you not agent building, agentic flow building. And how can I actually use AI? We do some of this today where people in the business actually speak to a system we have. It's an AI agent built into Boomi called Design Gen. They describe the business problem and they can describe it. Now, here's where I'd love to make it start to rethink processes agentically and make different recommendations.
Mhm.
But it designs it and it scaffolds out the entire workflow for them. That then goes out to the technical group that then starts to fill that in. But then now we're doing incredible stuff with Claude Code where I can actually go in, see the flow. A developer speaks to Claude Code and it starts to fill in the flow and all the details of it, all the technical details, and then it runs automatically. So a lot of work that was in partnership with Anthropic. So just cool stuff like that, allowing people to link tightly to what the business wants, not what IT thinks the business wants, but the business defining that through no low code and then having that implemented and then making sure that has all the enterprise features. So we continue to double down there, knowing too, you asked the other ones, like our data management and other stuff, our ability to not only create using agents to actually improve the quality of your data so that it's feeding these projects, a big focus area. Agentic knowledge bases, we already do advanced memory. We're doing more in that regard. So you don't even have to think about it. RAG as a service. So it's so hard today to find engineers that understand how to do vector databases and deal with chunking and overlapping to get high quality answers. Actually having RAG as a service where automatic vector database as a service where we do that automatically on your behalf. So you don't have to be experts in vector databases, for instance. All these things, faster to innovate. How do we enable you to have impact? So these are where the roadmap aligns with that vision.
Wow, just wow.
A lot going
Very
on.
inspiring, very inspiring. A lot of it, lot of innovations coming that makes sense, that makes business sense because that's what we are looking for. And Chris, thank you so much. I mean, we've talked about so many things that really make
We did. We
sense
covered a
to,
lot of ground.
yes, yes, from agent-driven transformations to real business impact to governance to the roadmap to how to make it happen in businesses, whether you started already or not. Um, Chris, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Pascal, fantastic. Thank you for having me again.
And to you watching us, thank you and see you next time.